Good morning to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to our update this morning on historically major hurricane Beryl. It is now a Category 3 as of the latest 8 a.m. update, and it is history in the making. We have not seen a storm like this ever on record in June, especially in its location where it is right now in the MDR still. It is quite an incredible storm, and it's going to bring very significant impacts to the islands tonight and throughout tomorrow. We'll go over all the latest information in just a bit. Let's start off with the National Hurricane Center homepage because the 8 a.m. advisory has just been released just moments ago, well, several minutes ago. It is 115 miles per hour and 968 millibars. If you're tracking it, it is located at 10.6 north and it is at 53.9 west, and it is moving west still at 21 miles per hour. But it is slowly gaining latitude, although it is gaining latitude actually at a much slower pace than what some of the modeling and what the National Hurricane Center track shows. So that'll be very significant, especially for the islands, because I said yesterday Beryl is going to be a very small and compact system, meaning that depending on which island you're in will depend on which island, which will depend on what kind of impacts you get, because of how small Beryl is, impacts will really vary from island to island. So we have all of the latest information with Beryl right now. It is now a dangerous Category 3 hurricane, and life-threatening winds and storm surge is expected in the Windward Islands beginning early Monday. Here's a satellite picture of Beryl, and honestly, when they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, well, this is definitely worth 1,000 words this morning. Clearing eye with Beryl, we have these convective bursts wrapping around the eye, and that is very much a sign of an intensifying storm, and you can actually see on the latest satellite frames Beryl continues to clear out its eye, and it's already a major hurricane. It wouldn't even shock me if we get to an even stronger intensity than what is expected right now. Why did Beryl become a major hurricane so quickly, though? Obviously, it rapidly intensified, but there's also recon in there this morning. They went in and found winds in Beryl to be, at least from the SFMRs, this represents the surface winds that recon finds. You could see they clearly found it above 95 knots, which basically means that they found the winds strong enough to support a major hurricane, and they found flight level winds as well, around 110 or so knots, I believe, and they found the max SFMR. Well, they found SFMR is already strong enough to support a major hurricane. I think the max one was around 107 knots. The bottom line is that Beryl is a major hurricane this morning. It is a strengthening storm, and recon is actually not done, by the way. This is the latest shot of the recon, and this is actually the NOAA recon, not the Air Force recon, reconnaissance low-level recon. But you can see they're sampling the storm. We're going to get more data probably throughout the morning, and I wouldn't even be surprised if Beryl continues to strengthen while recon is in there. So we'll get more information about Beryl and what its intensity is now, and probably what it'll be throughout the entire day. So we have that out of the way. Let's take a look at the National Hurricane Center cone. And this was only expected to be a major hurricane by at least later this afternoon or this evening. I mean, anyways, I think yesterday we were only expecting this to be a major hurricane on Monday. Now it's done so this morning, a full 24 hours earlier than what was expected out of Beryl. And unfortunately, that just means an even worse case scenario for the Windward Islands. I mean, there is no way in sugarcoating it. This is basically the worst case scenario out of Beryl right now, for the Windward Islands. You can see in response to that, we have hurricane warnings in effect all throughout the southern Caribbean islands. We'll go over all the islands that are specifically in the warning in just a moment, but you can see it passes through the islands as a major hurricane, probably as a strengthening storm. The National Hurricane Center has a peak of Category 4 intensity, 130 miles per hour. At this point, I think it'll probably be much stronger than that. I wouldn't even rule out a high-end Category 4. Category 5 right now is still a little bit too early to say. It's kind of a wait-and-see game with that. But a high-end Category 4 at this point won't even shock me. And it's just all the more wild that we're looking at this on the date of June 30th in the Atlantic. It is completely unprecedented, as I said before, to have a major hurricane hitting the islands this early on in the hurricane season. It has not happened before. We've had instances where hurricanes have hit the Caribbean islands this early on, but they were just category 1 or category 2. This is going to be a category 3. Well, it's a category 3 right now, and it's likely to even be a category 4 as this passes through the islands. And then after that, moves into the Eastern Caribbean. And all I'm going to say is for those in the Central and Western Caribbean right now, the best you could do is just monitor the progress of Beryl, because it is going to be a wait and see game right now, especially as we get past the next 60 hours. The model guidance is really uncertain whether or not we're going to see this track a little bit further north or a little bit further south. Plus, past day 3, things always change. So I wouldn't focus on what Beryl is going to do right now. Once it gets past the Eastern and Central Caribbean, all I'm going to say is everybody that is west of Hispaniola and Haiti, so that includes Central America, Mexico, Cuba, Jamaica. Everybody should be on alert right now for Beryl and monitor the progress of this storm as it enters the Eastern Caribbean. Here are the key messages right now from Beryl. Really good, kind of lays out the points that the National Hurricane Center has for each advisory. The first one, obviously, is that it is expected to become an extremely dangerous category 4 hurricane when it reaches the Windward Islands on Monday, bringing destructive hurricane force winds, life-threatening storm surge, and they have hurricane warnings are in effect for much of the Windward Islands. Once again, we'll go over what islands in just a moment. Heavy rain and localized flooding is going to be also a threat as well. This is a tropical system after all, so this will produce lots of heavy rain. And as I mentioned before, as we get towards day 4 and 5, the intensity and track is very uncertain at this point. It's really going to depend on what happens in the Eastern Caribbean, which will determine what Beryl does further west. So here's the latest public advisory by the National Hurricane Center. If you want to read this on your own time and not wait for whenever I do these videos, just search up nhc.noaa.gov, and you'll get all the latest information on whatever storm you're tracking, in this case, Hurricane Beryl. Obviously, maximum sustained winds, 115 miles an hour. We know all that. Here are the hurricane warnings right now. So if you're in these islands and you're under a hurricane warning, you should be rushing your preparations to completion by tonight, the latest, because that's when we're going to start getting tropical storm impacts probably on the island. So here are the hurricane warnings right now for Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadine Islands, Grenada, and Tobago are all under hurricane warnings at this time. A tropical storm warning is in effect for Martinique, and there's a tropical storm watch in effect right now for Dominica. So if you're in Dominica, that means keep an eye out on conditions, and they might upgrade to a tropical storm warning probably in just a little bit. So, and they actually go on to say what the criteria is for each warning. So a hurricane warning means that hurricane conditions are expected somewhere within the area. Preparations to protect life and property should be rushed to completion, once again, as I said, by tonight. The other important impact, or the other important thing that I want to mention, as I said before, Beryl is going to be a very small storm, so it's really going to depend from island to island in terms of what impacts people see, because the hurricane force winds only extends out 15 miles from the center right now, so it is a very, very small storm. Tropical storm force winds extend upwards of up to 80 miles from the center. So once again, if you're in all of the islands, you should be preparing, but this is going to be one of those cases where what happens to the track will actually impact what kind of impacts people see, given that the storm is very small and very compact. So I really monitor the progress of what Beryl does throughout today. But still, if you're in the Windward Islands in general, you should be preparing. So that is the force extent of the winds. Here are some of the hazards you should keep an eye out Obviously, one of them being hurricane force conditions, especially if you're in the hurricane warned area. This is a really big one. Life-threatening storm surge will raise the water levels by as much to 6 to 9 feet above the normal tide levels in areas of onshore flow where Beryl makes landfall. So that means 6 to 9 feet of storm surge. That is very significant storm surge for a tropical cyclone. 6 to 9 feet is not very. I'm 6 feet, so that would mean that the water would be just above my head, and that is definitely not a situation you want to be in. This is not the worst storm surge that a tropical hurricane could probably produce, but 6 to 9 feet is still very significant. And that'll be especially an issue if you're right along the coastline of impact for where Hurricane Beryl will make landfall. And then also, once again, there is the rainfall threat. Both of these threats are water related, and and I really want to point this out that people always tend to focus on the category or the wind speed, but often tend to undermine just how much of an impact the rainfall and the flooding rains will have as a storm is making landfall. And that ends up being the number one killer, especially storm surge and rainfall too. I mean, we've seen in issues where rainfall really caused the most amount of damage, especially with storms like Harvey, Hurricane Florence. Also, Hurricane Florence in 2018 happens to be the same naming list we're using in 2018 as this year. But the bottom line is that the rainfall will be a huge issue, and I actually have it on this map here. Especially the southern Windward Islands, you could anywhere honestly could see as much as at least 2 to even 4 inches of rain. Places like St. Vincent and I guess Barbados has the highest chance for the most amount of rain right now. 4 to 6 inches is expected. Wouldn't surprise me if we even see locally higher amounts of rainfall. And then obviously as this gets into the Caribbean, as Beryl expands as well, the rainfall threat will probably be extended to portions of Dominican Republic and Haiti as Beryl tracks further north. It depends though on what kind of track Beryl takes. If it shifts a little bit more north, which will increase the threat, the level of threat for the Hispaniola, including Haiti and Dominican Republic, or will it take a track a little bit further south that we don't see as many impacts for Haiti and DR? But that is getting past the day 3 point at this time, where we're getting a little bit further than what we should be worrying right now, especially given that a landfall right now on the Caribbean islands is likely to be imminent within the next 24 hours. And so it is a major hurricane. It's probably only going to get stronger at this point. The best advice I can say is to, especially if you're in the island that's going to get the direct impact from Beryl, put yourself in an interior room with as much padding between you and the outside as much as possible. So go to the most interior room of your house because the winds will be very strong. 130, 140 miles per hour is not anything to play with, especially if you're in the eye wall. Most people won't see those winds. It's only going to be a very small amount of people that actually see the 130 and 40 or whatever amount mile per hour winds. Hopefully it is only on the lower end of that, even though it's still going to be a category 4. But I mean, with this kind of situation, you really can't rule out it becoming stronger. Not saying this will be a category 5 because that is just insane completely for the standards of what we're talking about, which is late June. We're not even into the month of July yet, and we're already talking about a hurricane like Beryl. So we have a lot of tracking to do over the next 24 hours, and also over the next week or so, it's going to be an even longer wait. If you're in the Caribbean, besides the Windward Islands, I recommend just watch the progress of Beryl. We'll certainly be doing that here on my channel. So if you have not subscribed yet and you want the notification for my video uploads, which will be at least 2 times throughout the day today, or in the coming days. It'll be at least, I'm aiming for at least 2 videos a day and at least 1 live stream a day. So I'm gonna do Beryl right now. I'm probably gonna do another update this afternoon. We're gonna go over probably everything that's going on in the Atlantic. And I'm still debating the schedule of what I'm gonna do today, but I'm probably gonna try to do an update this afternoon, a live stream, and then I'm probably going to aim for a midday update that goes over everything else that is going on in the Atlantic right now, because we have Invest 94L and we also have newly formed Invest 96L, which that 96L could potentially be another threat to the Caribbean as we head into next week. Let's not get ahead ourselves. Let's not get ahead of ourselves though, and focus on that right now. Let's just really put the energy into Beryl right now, since it's an imminent major hurricane threat. And we'll monitor the progress of Beryl throughout the day. Just letting you know, this will not be the only update you see from me today on Beryl. So with that being said, stay safe. Peace, love, and kindness to you all. Monitor the progress of Beryl closely. If you're in a hurricane warning right now, please prepare now and finish your preparations by this evening, the latest, and get indoors, get in your safe place. Stay safe. God bless you all, and we will talk again very, very soon.